This is the NIL podcast by Sportspreneur. NIL deals, athlete business, and the business of college sports. Let's get into it. So, like living in Ann Arbor, I mean, you're surrounded by it. Like anytime you pick these towns, like I'm from Buffalo, New York. You know, if you're in Buffalo, you're a Bills fan, Sabres fan, like whatever. If you live in Columbus, Ohio, whatever, same thing, Ann Arbor. But it's different today. I'm just curious what it's like in that ecosystem of like being surrounded by, not that it's bad, but just curious from like a fan side of things. What's it like?
You mean just recently because of the success or?
Yeah, success, any of it. I mean, it's, you know, a place like Michigan, they're going to be excited regardless, right? I mean, might get upset, but they're into their sport, they're into their team, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I grew up here, so it's, you know, you kind of live in this bubble and then you leave the bubble for a bit and then you come back and you're like, holy cow, like they really got it going on here as far as like so many different teams are competing for national championships here and there. Yeah,
and you're in the middle of it. So like, the infrastructure, right? The architecture of sports. You just said you work with these programs. I'm assuming that's all right to talk about, right? So I've watched, you know, growing up in these cities, you watch sports and you live and die by the team. But then when you really see what's going on behind it, there is a whole business behind it, right? That's truly what it is. And sports and live sports is one of the last playgrounds for advertising, sponsorships, huge business, right? All of that. You played sports, I understand as well. How is as you've gotten older, how has your mindset changed as it relates to sports? And understanding, though, the athlete and the fan side of things changed, you know, if I'm getting my question out correctly, but you kind of see what I'm getting at.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the professionalization of sports at every level now is real. I just got back from a conference last week. It was all focused on the youth market, and private equity is all circling around that. Obviously, we can talk at length about college and NIL and all the players getting paid today, but it's absolutely really happening now already in the youth market as well.
Yeah, it is in the youth market. That's what feeds it, right? I mean, these athletes have to start somewhere and they come up and next thing you know, parents are now saying, hey, it's not just a scholarship, right? It's actual money, right? It used to be this thing where you can go pro, which is a hard thing to do, as we all know. And then there's an on-ramp to get money while you're in high school. I mean, and how early is too early, right? Just had someone on who's in the youth sports world. I think he's calling that a $50 billion industry.
Yeah.
Going back to the point about sports is this last place where people still come together personally from everything from the T-ball field to an NFL stadium, right? And the numbers are different, but it's a fascinating time to be in the professionalization and the commercialization of sports, right?
Yeah, no, it really is. And it's sad in a way as a parent. So I have a parent of a 15-year-old basketball, football player and an 18-year-old volleyball player.
Yeah.
And so as a parent, like you're like, this sucks, but then you sit on the other side professionally. It's like, well, actually, even as a parent, you have to educate your kids to do this. I mean, if your kid only has 200 followers on their social accounts and they keep posting their best game ever, then you got a kid that's just as good and they've got 3,000-4,000 followers and you're posting the same game. The exposure, the reach, the chance of college coaches seeing it, recruiters seeing it, like is far more, you know, opportunistic. And so these kids have to build their personal brand in conjunction with, you know, continuing to build their craft on the court, on the field.
Yeah. I heard you talk about some kids that might not be able to do that, right? It's too much, like, because you have homework, school, training, games, coaches, parents, pressure, like, and it's different at different levels, right? And some kids like, I don't want to do it. Or if I'm on social media, I just want to consume something. I want a break, right? I just want to get out of this. And now you're telling me I have to go build a following. Right. So all of a sudden, talk to someone else and they're like, every kid with a smartphone is now a media company. And some kids thrive on that, love it. Other kids are like, I want nothing to do with that. And I think that's where you come in, student athlete score, right? That's why you're trying to help and understand like what the kid needs to do. But that becomes a lot because in the last thing I'll leave my statement with is the mental health of an athlete, right? Which has always existed, right? This isn't anything new. But now we're adding a layer of complexity and finances, which we already know is one of the biggest drivers of stress and anxiety in the modern day, right? So when I bring that up, like what's coming to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think getting these kids to put the phone down is near impossible right now. I think it's what they're doing on that phone that's also concerning, and the social platforms, you know, Snap. I know my kids live on that in addition to the IGs and, you know, TikToks. But what we're trying to do in the youth market is create something where, okay, maybe you do want to grow from 200 followers to 1,000 followers. You don't know where to start, how to do it. Or maybe you're like, you know what? I just need to make sure that I don't have that post from 2.5 years ago that's going to come bite me in the rear because maybe I did a middle finger or I wrote a cuss word in my comments, So these types of things is what our app and what our system does. So I guess you could choose how you want to use it. You could use it to help grow your brand, like a Duolingo learn a language sort of movement. Or you could just have at least all this metrics on your social account to be able, holy cow, I forgot that I did that 2 years ago. Let me take that post down because maybe I'm never going to play in college, but maybe like a college admin office that's looking at you to go to Harvard just to go to school is starting to look at all your social accounts. And they want to make sure like, hey, is this kid a good kid? Oh my God, 6 years ago, he did this. Like, no, we don't want that kid here.
Yeah. I think it'd be good right now, back up a little bit, student athlete score, what is it, 2 years or going on 2 years perhaps, and what it is that you do, because I think it lays the groundwork for a lot of things we talk about, and we're going to go deviate off in different directions. We'll see where this takes us, but understanding like, here's the thing I'll say, as it relates to NIL, which is the big buzzword, and there's a lot of other things going on, everyone's in the mix, right? It's the big gold rush, and that's fine, right? It makes sense that more people would get in this business. There's like millions of entrepreneurs overnight, and there's a lot of money to be made. Okay, cool. But then what gives someone the ability to talk about these topics? And I think that's why we're having this conversation. It's why I wanted to talk to you. So what is it that you do at Student Athlete Score?
Yeah, so what we are is a data aggregation layered platform with a bunch of AI infused throughout. So in essence, we have every athlete on the platform through web scraping. We go out to athletic department websites, we scrape the web, we look for the player's bio and their social handles, and then we push it in, and then we infuse it with AI. Outcomes over every D1 athlete, in addition to pro athletes, youth athletes. We have over 100,000 brands in the system because we're looking through all these posts, looking for brand mentions. So now we have that category. And then lastly, we have every university team by team account. And then from there, what schools are doing now, and they're realizing you've got schools in the mid-majors that need to sell more, and they're looking for any way possible to bring in money. And then you've got schools like Power Fours that want to, get more money above the cap as real, true NIL. So it passes the NIL Go platform. And so that's where we come in with local and regional brand deals where we can source, these 5 athletes go to the ice cream shop and they all make posts, and the ice cream shop gets excited because they're now seeing the return on their investment through our social media platform and the metrics that we show. We're not going to compete with a national brand with Pepsi doing some big, 6-figure deal. Our sweet spot is like the local regional brands with like maybe your non-rev share athletes or maybe your third string running back. Those are the kind of deals that we're putting together on the platform.
Got it. So you're in a way, and I think you talked about a FICO score, like this is a credit report on the student athletes that brands and schools and everyone has access to, including, I don't know if the players as well, but.
Yeah, on the social media side. So what we haven't brought in yet, which we really want to partner with some big players, is like, hey, how many points a game? What kind of pitcher am I throwing? How many miles per hour? Like, we don't do any of that. But on the social media, like, how much is this kid worth to do a social post? Yes, that's where we come in.
Okay. And so when a university works with you, so you mentioned Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, what are they doing? Like, what is the arrangement? Not the arrangement specifically, right? You get what I'm saying? What are you all doing with them?
Yeah, so we're charging the university a SaaS fee, an annual fee. And then from there, they get all their athletes free access to our athlete app. They also have the mainframe dashboard that all other staff on campus can use to, one, educate the athletes. So a lot of NIL divisions, they have a lot of athletes that come in the door and they're like, hey, I want to do a deal with Lululemon. And I have 500 followers. And it's like, well, yeah, let me show you. Score, you have no chance right now. But let me show you a brand that maybe you could get in front of being a Michigan athlete on the field hockey team with 500 followers. And so it's the educational side, one. But then you also, as I was mentioning earlier, use our platform as a discovery tool because the local pizza shop is like, hey, I can't afford to pay for the star quarterback or the star point guard. But like, I want to do something with some Michigan athletes. Like, do you have any athletes on the softball team, field hockey team that have like 500 to 1,000 followers? Maybe I could pay $2,000. That's where we come in. That's our sweet spot. And like the big MMRs, the Learfields, the Playflies, they don't really care to do those deals because they don't really make much on their side in those deals.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we fill that little sweet spot void right there where there's still a lot of money to be made, but it's not going to be, with one quarterback and, doing something with Gatorade on a national level.
Okay. And is this all happening within a chat, like an AI inside of your platform? Or this is not an individual, it's not 2 people on a phone or in an email discussing this. This is like the pizza shop or the ice cream shop reaching out and getting on your platform and doing it. Is that right?
Yeah, we're heading there. So right now there is a lot of AI. You are still going to have to at some point have that interpersonal connection between the pizza shop and the Michigan employee that is talking to the 5 athletes that are going to do these posts and for this dollar amount. But the early discovery piece is where it's all automated. So because you could imagine if you walked up to a university and you only had $2,000 and you're trying to start a new smoothie shop in town, you're like, where do I start? But I know I want to activate a couple of athletes on the roster. That's where our system can quickly identify, like, hey, these 3 athletes might be perfect for you. And you had no idea one's a women's rower, one's, a cheerleader, one's like you've seen that they've already done some smoothie posts in the past. Like they're organically perfect for this, brand campaign, that kind of stuff.
Got it. Who, not necessarily your platform, just in general, right? With all these things happening and just to even understand that they can go and partner with a smoothie shop locally, right? The education piece of it. And it doesn't stop there, right? It's like, okay, you can partner with this. Here's your market. Here's your reach. Here's your audience, right? Social media plays a part. How many followers you have on Instagram, TikTok, what have you. And then, right, like all the stuff that comes with it, right? Then someone's getting paid. Okay, so now it needs to go through NIL Go, right? What does that mean? What does that look like? Okay, now money's actually changing hands. Money shows up in your account. A 1099 shows up in your email or in the mail, right? Late January, something like that. Whose responsibility is it at this point to educate, right? That's probably the university, I would imagine. But like, what does that look like? Are they educating? Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so there's definitely third parties out there that kind of specialize in that educational piece. They go on campuses, they try to meet with teams and athletes, say, hey, look, how many of you did NIL deals last year? And like they all raise their hand. How many of you paid taxes last year? And a lot of hands drop. And it's like, oh boy, like you guys are going to be in trouble with Uncle Sam. We don't really deal on that side, but there's, groups that are trying to do that on campuses, as well as, like you said, the NIL departments directly. They are the education first focused group at every athletic department campus. And so their role, and then if they decide to bring in a third party to help educate the athletes. And then the financial wallet partners, we don't have a financial wallet yet built out, but we're heading that direction. That also can, capture the taxes ahead of time. So, if I make $1,000 and I only see 850 of it, at least I know that the other 150 was pulled because it's going to be, paid off accordingly and whatnot.
Okay. Do you think the education's happening the way it needs to be, or are we not close?
Oh, I think we still have a ways to go for sure. I think we're far better than we were a year ago and 2 years ago. But I think as NIL continues to grow and more athletes continue to do deals, I think you've got that many more individuals that you have to educate that, hey, don't spend all that $1,000. Like, keep a little bit back because you're going to have to pay.
Are the powers like College Sports Commission, right? NIL Go, which is part of it. Are they, obviously they're funded, I think Big Ten, SECs, like the big powers behind this, right? There's a lot of money changing hands. They're trying to create the narrative and make sure everything's understood. And if it's above $600 in the aggregate, right, it has to go through these platforms. Like I've heard stories, well, that's not always the case. I don't know, right? Like there was always stories. There was always the bagman stories. How is that going? I mean, is it the same sort of thing? We're better than we were a year ago. There's still a ways to go, and there's still a lot of uncertainty, and people are playing by their own rules. Like, what do you think is happening? Again, this isn't about necessarily your platform specifically, but what you're hearing and what you're seeing. I mean, you're in the mix of it more than most.
Yeah. So for a lot that don't know the details of, NIL, I think it was 2021 when it originally started, 2021, and you had this era of a different Wild West that ended last June. And so that was kind of an era where you didn't have to do true NIL deals. You were able to throw bags of money at players all sorts of different creative ways. And then NIL Go popped up and they said, starting July 1st, you've got to run these deals through. It's $600. I think I heard recently they bumped it to $2,500 now per deal. So you don't have to report anything up until that. But now, so imagine like last summer, everybody that had a deal and, hey, I need to get this guy $5 million before this school year so they don't leave. Everybody was writing front-loading checks up until June 30th. They were like, just get him paid. He doesn't have to do a deal. That'll set him up for this 25-26 school year. Now, though, this is the first time ever that through the portal, just happened with basketball or a couple months ago with football. If you promise that same guy another $5 million this year, you've got to validate that, or you got to take it off your 20.5 rev share cap. And so like finding that unique kind of combination of then proving that, hey, this athlete is truly worth this with their 200,000 followers, they're a national brand. NIL Go, you have to let them get this $2 million deal with Gatorade. It's legit. Let me show you the data behind that. A lot of folks are actually using our data as screenshots to help fight the fight with the NIL Go deals. But it's unfortunately, coming back to your question, it's a new era of Wild West. So that first era was like the 2020s to the 2020 summer of 25. And now you've got this new era that's just beginning. It hasn't even been a year old yet.
Okay. Do you see the CSE and NIL Go almost like if you see a compliance office, like if you look at a financial advisor and they want to get on a podcast, they want to talk about things. They're not going to talk about the stock market, but like early on in podcasting, they would be like, no, we don't want you doing that. We're going to fight you on the things that you want to be doing and you probably should be doing, but like they're playing the other side of it. So then everyone's like just at arms with each other, right? It'd be like a college sports office. And if Ohio State wants to do this, but the compliance office says, yeah, you can't do that. So now we're battling each other. Do you see CSE, NIL Go, all the different tools and the committees that are there working with the athletes and the brands, or is it a lot of fighting going on where it's just like complicated, or I don't know?
It's very complicated and there's a lot of fight.
Yeah.
Kind of funny that the Big Ten and the SEC got together a couple of years ago or whenever it was, and they're like, hey, let's self-regulate. Like, let's all do it. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And now we're here and they're like, don't report that deal. Hopefully they don't catch it. Don't report that deal. Hopefully they don't catch it. It's like, well, you guys created all this in the first place and now you want to like not be a part of it?
Yeah. That's a lot. That's a mess,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And where does it go from here? And they're the ones driving, they're like you said, the players are brands. The universities are enormous brands, right? Like these are massive companies. So, and it's all changing too. So like some of the big topics we could talk about right now, the 5 and 5 rule, right? So that's going on right now. It sounds like that's the direction it's going. I find it interesting that like there's a group of kids that were in the COVID years. They all got an extra year of eligibility, and then they were just granting just like more eligibility. So I'm like here you go, have another year, right? It's crazy. Like we watched, and it is what it is, right? That's the rules. I mean, Indiana, Miami's rolling out there. They weren't the only ones, and they did it right, and they had incredible teams. They had some 24, 25, 26-year-olds out in the field, right? That happened, okay? And like I said, they weren't the only ones doing it. But then now there's going to be the 5 and 5, but then there's like the kids in the middle that kind of didn't get either. And they're just like caught up in the wash and they're like, okay, so I guess it's not being retroactive. It doesn't sound like it's going that direction. But in all, like, I don't know what makes sense. I don't have the answers. We've used this word a couple of times. It's complicated. But
Yes.
At least there's like some consistency to it. I guess that's what we're seeing is like the 5 and 5 just kind of says, hey, listen, let's just give everybody 5 years. Let's stop having these fights every year. We're not going to have 26-year-olds playing college sports. It seems like, I don't know, but if they start later, they could still be 26. Because when you get into other sports like tennis and they're coming from England or Germany or whatever, they might be coming over as a 21-year-old. So they will be 25 when they graduate. Anyway.
Right. So I did play basketball back in the day at Fairfield University, small D1 in Connecticut. And so I think of a guy that was our center and he came over from Israel and it was just that, right? He played a couple of years Israeli professionally and then he came over and he was a freshman at 20, right?
Yeah.
But back then, you had your 4 years of eligibility. And if you got hurt, you'd file to try to get your 5th, and that was it. And so I think this new 5 and 5 is great for the entire ecosystem because what's been going on the last couple of years is absolutely out of control yet again. So now we're talking about on the court, on the field, out of control, and I already talked about off. So we've just got to regulate all this and bring it back into some sort of standardization throughout that everybody can, react to. It does stink for those kids, you're right, that got caught in the middle of this one. It also stinks for the kids that got caught in the middle of the COVID one. And unfortunately, I feel horrible for all of them, but I think you just got to rip the Band-Aid and make the move. And it really does stink for those that are going in the middle.
Yeah. There's something else that popped up, and I don't know what'll happen. This conversation hopefully will live on, evergreen and all that kind of stuff. But Jameson Williams, who played at Ohio State and Alabama, is now suing the Big Ten and the SEC because he's like, they were using my name, image, likeness when I was there, and I want the money. So is he the first, right? It's like the O'Bannon situation. And I don't think it's that big of a story, but who knows? It could become, and all of a sudden, all those players that were around that time, or any year for that matter, could say, you know what? I want my money too, and let's file a lawsuit and see where that goes. And if you win one, all of a sudden, I don't know, does it become class action? I don't know how that works, but that's a fascinating topic. He's a big player in the NFL, and he's had enough, right? And I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot more of that. Absolutely.
The NCAA tournament, that's the other news. So they're expanding. The college football tournament, the college football playoff will probably eventually expand. I mean, it's probably no way they won't. And you get on X, you get on whatever, you talk to people, you get on Reddit, and you're like, no one's happy with that. Like, we're just adding more games. And it feels like It feels like greed. It feels like more games equals more money. Because what we talked about at the beginning is sports is like this last place where the live thing matters, right? Like award shows they're just not getting the ratings, and TV shows are all streaming, right? So it's sports, and that's the place to go. So it's like surface area. How many more games can we put out there? Now I think of it's like, well, if you add too much water to the Kool-Aid, it just becomes water and it doesn't taste good. I also understand, like, I just want to watch games. Like, if you love basketball and you just like, I don't care who's playing, I just want to watch a basketball game. And I love that. I think that's great. But I also think that it just waters the whole thing down. And I don't know what that does, but I also know, and I can go back and forth all the way, sports betting is a huge part of this, right? If there's a game on and you can bet on it, people will watch it. And I think a lot of the numbers that we're seeing, besides the fact that Nielsen changed how they do other numbers, right, and all that, but sports betting is a huge reason why. There's a study done, I don't have it in front of me, but like they did in England, and I think 75% of people, or 3 in 4 people who bet on Premier League, watch the game. So they know that if you have a little wager on it, you will also watch the game. So that's another thing. So I think it's greed, it's money, it's whatever, but it's like, I get it. They have a business to run and it's very expensive and they want to grow this thing, and there's a lot of investing coming into it. And the universities want to see it. They want to see the data. They want to say, hey, this many people are watching it. We can make this much money. So why wouldn't we do it? Why don't we expand it? It's just, what does it become? So expansion, more games. I mean, I guess in some regards you could say, hey, that's great. It's more time, more opportunities for people. At the same time, it's like, we've just watered this whole thing down. So
Yeah. That was probably one of the things I learned early on, how powerful TV money is in all of this ecosystem. And like, it is the most powerful.
Yeah.
And, kind of looking through that and thinking about it, you're right. I mean, the NCAA tournament, I forget how many teams is it? Is it the 4 before, or was it 8 this year before the 64 played?
Yeah, it's like 68. Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of people don't tune into those games, right? They're kind of like, it's not part of the real tournament. Like I'll start watching that Thursday, Friday of the first round.
Yep.
So what will this do to that, adding those additional teams and that kind of watered down like pre-tournament to the actual tournament? Obviously, they've got to dress it up and, refactor to make sure that people don't perceive it that way.
Yeah.
And then you're right with the football playoffs as well. I mean, it's just like TV money is drooling at the opportunity to get 4 more games or however many more games.
Yep. Yeah, you get that many more millions of people watching it. It is. And you see like the biggest leagues in the world and where they're getting their revenue from. It's the ones that are making the most money. It's the TV money. I mean, tickets matter, merch matters, right? All this other stuff matters. That's the number. That's like the NBA. Like, how does the valuation, how do the Lakers sell for $10 billion? Obviously, the storied franchise, the whole thing. But when they get a new TV deal, it's like if any professional team goes for sale, like it's worth, let's say $6 billion. But once it sells, there's only one of them. So, right, it's scarce. And so you need it. And so anyone who's got that money is going to invest in it. And now it's worldwide. People from the US are investing in soccer overseas, vice versa. They're coming over here and buying teams, right? So fascinating for sure. With all the money changing hands, we've talked a lot about football, basketball. We've mentioned some other things, like field hockey. Tennis is one, right? That's been in the news a lot lately. University of Arkansas closes their men's and women's tennis program. And then after that, I've seen others have as well. And they're not the first, right? I think Middlebury, for example, shut their hockey team down. Like this has been happening here and there. And, you look at the list of big universities, you have Michigan State, and you would say football makes the most money. Basketball, even though it's a basketball school, let's say they've been known for basketball for so many years, that would be number 2 and probably make some money. And that's mostly because of the Big Ten media deal, right? TV deal. Every other sport, and I'm not looking at Michigan State right now, but like would not make money. And there's different reasons for that. Well, more and money, obviously football drives all the money, right? For the most part. But then what do? It's like, well, do we not have tennis now? And then we shut it down and all those kids got to go find a new program to play at or not play. On the other side of it, if you look at that roster, what they had, it was, I don't know if it was percentage wise, I think it was like 75% were international. So, and they were older, right? And so it kind of goes into that whole thing again. All that said, what happens when most of the big money is in football and a little bit of basketball to these other programs? Like some universities like Ohio State are going to stay committed to having the most amount of D1 sports as they possibly can. Other programs are just like, listen, we cannot do it. Our enrollment might be down. Like some universities, like Oregon, I think was even talking about it, like their enrollment was down. A lot of schools like in Ohio State or schools in the Southeast, their enrollment's way up, right? And they can't stop. But it's very hard to get into these universities. Where does that take us to? You're in, like I said, you're living in this world right now. What are you seeing? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the beginning of a potential movement where we could actually be looking at a bunch of D3 sort of non-rev share sports. If you think about, okay, football goes and sells off to a private equity and they enter, a new super league that's a professional league. Basketball does the same. And now you're starting to look at all these other 20 varsity sports saying, hey, we still want to keep tennis around, but like we want to stop paying for 2 coaches, for an entire team, a roster. And we also want to keep sending them, this winter to Florida for 4 weeks to like train. And this, like, no. Let's cut all that out. Let's figure out if it can be a club level team that's still, extremely competitive, but like these kids pay their own way to Michigan or Michigan State, whatever. They're going to pay their own way to Florida. I don't know if the university's like, hey, we'll pay for 1 coach, or maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know if these schools are going to be able to continue to justify having this many D1 fully scholarshiped sports with all these coaches and all these expenses.
Yeah. Well, and I would think too, the brands that are involved with it, right? The collectives, and I've heard that they're getting tired of some things, right? What does that look like from a standpoint of if the collectives are like, I'm kind of tired of paying for this and I'm not seeing my ROI on this NIL deal? What does that look like if they're getting frustrated? It's like, so if I'm writing a check for $1 million for this player or whatever, it might be $5,000. And I'm saying, I'm not seeing the return. The team's not doing well. I've heard stories of people saying, I want to back out of that deal, or I'm not going to do it in the future, right? So then you lose money because what is the return? But I don't know, maybe they are getting return in some other ways. I don't know if I'm making sense there, but.
Yeah, no, I think there's serious donor fatigue at the highest level. We thought that, I think every university, at least the big Power Fours, are trying to tap all their billionaire donors. And, those guys obviously have crazy amounts of money. And maybe there's sort of an ego sort of competition where if the billionaire donor at Texas buys $10 million to get the quarterback, well, I'm a $1 billion, owner at Michigan. Well, that happened with Bryce Underwood, right? Last year.
Yep.
So is that still going to exist? Absolutely. But I think as you get off that horse, you'll see like, okay, there's true donor fatigue. No one can approach and say, hey, I got this guy next year. He's amazing in the portal. Like, let's go get him. And they're like, but he hasn't done 1 snap at Michigan, or he hasn't done 1 snap. Like, how do we know he's really going to be all that? Like, no, I'm actually more comfortable like putting money into the overall program, or I'd rather put more money into like naming my name on a building than to put into this athlete. But I also, just to toot our horn, I think that's where we come in from a true ROI perspective with not your top tier quarterbacks or, your point guards, but the rest of the athletes as they're doing true NIL deals. And you're able to show the data metrics to a brand that's regional and say, hey, look, instead of going to that billboard on I-94 for $10,000, like take that $10,000 and like put it into these deals with these athletes. And I'm telling you, your reach is going to be far more impressive as we show you the analytics on the rear of these deals with these Michigan athletes. So now you're supporting Michigan athletes. You're not throwing money at the wall, hoping that it sticks. You're actually seeing true ROI. So, a lot of these like entrepreneurial owners or executives that have gone on past graduating at this university now want to support that university, but they can't just keep throwing money at the wall. Now they can do it in a structured way where it's like, oh, you know what? You're benefiting. I'm benefiting with my company. I'm seeing the ROI. Like, let's keep doing this. And I will stop going to that billboard on the interstate.
Yeah. It was like chaos and confusion, I feel like, early on. It's like, what's happening? Total chaos, total confusion, right? But it's like, let's keep going and let's see what happens. And, like you said, front-loading deals and like, let's just get it done. And you know what? Some people succeeded because of that. And other, probably a lot more, like, lost a lot of money, I would imagine. And now, and I operate a lot of times that way. Like early on, like, my mom's an artist, right? And so I could I love a good story, and I love like the feeling that you get from it. And I think what's best is when you mix it on the other side of it. My dad's in medicine, right? So you see like the scientific way of looking at it, the data. So you kind of get this confusion. But what's beautiful is when you have a little bit of both, right? Like that you can get a narrative story. It's like Ohio State, Michigan, and then you get the lure of it, right? All that stuff. But it's like, well, how many people watch the game? How much money did this generate? Like, what did this bring in ticket-wise? And like on and on and on. It's like, okay, now I can get behind something because I really do like the story, but now actually show me the math. And once I see that, and I think that's what you're looking at, I'm like writing notes down here, like data, compliance, ROI, mixed with something that we've all loved for a long time, which is college athletics, right? Like, that's great, but we have to have that other side of it. Or, I mean, I guess the other way was like, did you win a national championship or did you get close or did you go on a long run? Like Miami and Indiana in football. Like, yeah, that worked out for us. But like everyone's, oh, let's go do that. Not if it doesn't work, right? Like you picked the wrong quarterback and that's a problem.
Or I mean, take Indiana football, it worked out. Indiana basketball, that was the biggest budget. It was $31 million this year or something for Indiana basketball.
Yeah.
Something insane. Like okay, it worked for football, but it didn't work for basketball. So you can't, I mean, there's so many more pieces to the puzzle than just throwing the most money at a team.
Yeah. And the transfer portal, like you said, well, I don't know if this is going to work, right? So I was like comparing it to if a student's is applying to college as a high schooler, right? Some of these schools all these schools are very hard to get into, right? If you've gone to school for a year or two and you have a GPA and you've proven it at a legitimate university that you can have a 3.0 plus GPA or whatever, and then you apply to that same school, the acceptance rates of a transfer go way up because they're like, you can prove it. You've done it. You understand what it's like to be in college. You've lived in a dorm or maybe, I don't know, whatever. You have a GPA. Come on over here. It's no different because it's really hard to say there's how many high schools in this country that play college football or basketball or whatever. So field hockey, yeah. It's a lot. But then you've done it at a college level, come in the portal and then we'll work it that way. And I've heard the portal is that's pure chaos, right? Because there's a lot of promises and a lot of confusion, right? Again, but at least there from ROI standpoint, everyone on the other side of it is like, yes, but I'd rather place the bet on the person that's actually been there and done that, is a little bit older and more mature than betting on some kid. Congrats, you got a something on your SAT, you have a 4.8 GPA. I don't know, maybe those, because there's GPA inflation was a real thing. That's going back to the academic side of it. Or in sports, you played in a week conference in your high school, and of course you won every game by 50 points. You haven't seen what you're about to see on the field here if you come play for Michigan, right?
Yeah, you haven't been battle tested at the D1 level. So that's why you see a bunch of mid-major guys now going to the Power Fours, right? Like, hey, I mean, and it stinks. I mentioned my kids, so I think of my 15-year-old who would love to play D1 basketball someday. But the reality is, in today's environment, he's got like almost no chance, right? Like he's going to have to play D2 and really tear it up and then try to hit the portal to get to a mid-major D1. However, the 5 and 5 that you just talked about, you know, selfishly for me and others, parents, kids that are coming up, hopefully that brings it back to maybe the way I experienced it way back in the day. Not exactly though, because you're right. If you're allowed one transfer within that 5-year period, every mid-major guy that has a good year is going to throw himself in the portal probably every year unless they care about how the coach is going to react when they come back to campus because they didn't get picked up by a power player.
Right.
But I think that will hopefully slow this craziness down right now. But yeah, I think coaches at the highest level are going to keep, looking into the portal every year versus, downstream into the youth high school market.
Yeah.
Hopefully it waters it down a little bit though.
Yeah. And that's a good point you made because we didn't say that before, that the 5 and 5 would be a one-time transfer.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's important because that's like, you got to time that right. Because, you time it, you're like, I'm at this mid-major and I decided to go to, I don't know, Rutgers, right? And then you hit it, you're like, well, actually, if you would have 1 year, Duke was calling you or Kentucky was calling you. And I don't know. But that's decision making, right? That's life. And that's how it goes. And you don't know.
I think you got to be thoughtful about when you hit the portal too. Right now, I mean, every player is just like, yep, portal every year. Like, I don't care. But I think when that happens, you got to think about like, okay, if I don't get picked up, I got to walk back to my campus and look at my coach in the eyes. And he's like, dude, you played me. Like my loyalty to you is done, you know? So I think you got to be very thoughtful around that too.
Yeah. I'm sure there's loyalty. I know players and coaches have relationships, right? But we say
egos, right? So they can say that they don't and like, oh, hey, no, come on back. But like, it's in the back of their head. Like, man, you tried to leave me. So if there's another guy that's like, is really loyal and been here and it's you this year, I'm going to go with that guy.
Yeah.
I know the portal, you're going to hit the portal again next year. And
yeah. Well, and what's going to be wild, we just talked about like these tennis programs closing or what's going to happen and how much money they have. Like the mid-majors they don't have the same budgets, right? They don't own the brand, right? Like these universities we've talked about, you said UT Austin. I mean, my gosh, like I heard a story that back in the late 80s, like 1990 actually, they won the Cotton Bowl and they did not own the rights to Hook 'em Horns. So the fraternities were all selling the rights, or were not selling the rights, they were selling t-shirts with Hook 'em Horns on it. So think about it, a university like that did not own that. They made millions of dollars. Well, now that's a big deal. They own the licensing. So licensing in college sports is a big deal, right? So huge money. Ohio State University, Michigan, like these things you can't say those. I mean, hopefully we can say it in a podcast, right? And like talk about it, right? But like, which you can, but it's just so much at stake. A mid-major doesn't have that. I don't know what the numbers are. We can link to it in the show notes, but in the NFL draft that happened in 2026, I don't know how many rounds. It was like no like smaller schools. It was all the power. It was all the top university. It was all the big schools. It wasn't like, where'd that guy go to school? I never heard of him before or whatever, right? That's just not a thing anymore because the ones eventually they transferred, right? They got themselves to Michigan State or whatever they needed to get to. But what happens on the other end of it to these mid-majors that they can't, we've seen in March Madness, like they're not having the runs. That doesn't mean it won't happen again, because they're going to have to rethink like how they do it, right? The rules change a little bit. It's like, okay, so how do we get a good team and balance it? Maybe we start recruiting different kids. I don't know. Or maybe their story becomes, hey, we have all these kids come to our school, and if they come to our school, we're a pipeline to Michigan and Kentucky and Kansas. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they are today for sure, right? Mid-majors. I mentioned I played at Fairfield. I know a mid-major, even a kid there that's about to go to a big-time school because he used Fairfield as a platform this year, played exceptionally well.
Yep.
And now all the big Power Fours are like, yep, go in the portal. I'm grabbing you for sure.
Yeah.
So it's a proving ground, G League to the NBA. And then you look at the mid-majors, and I guess you could say, okay, where do they go? Maybe they're the ones that take a chance at a high schooler. But like, how many Power Fours are going to go grab straight out of high school anymore? I mean, it's few and far between for sure.
I've heard stories that they're not getting recruited.
You got to be a straight up 5-star monster to make that leap.
It's tough. These kids have it tough. In certain sports like tennis, soccer are big international sports.
Yeah.
So my son played goalie. And then when you get there and you start talking to him, and D2 and D3, the D2 coach is like, our goalie is going to be from Portugal, and we have a kid coming over from Germany, and they're also in their early 20s. He's like, so it's a men's league. He's like, so if there's a cross coming in, you have 26-year-old strikers coming at you. He's like, I don't know what to tell you. So go to undergrad, keep playing, and when you go get your master's, that would be the time to do it. Like, hey, we'll look at you, but chances are I don't know how anyone plays because of the age. Or they have 5 or 6 keepers on the team and teach their own. Someone might just like, hey, I just want to be on the team. I don't care if I play or not. I'm in practice. I'm in part of it, and that's cool. But I don't know. That becomes tough. But like, if you're not being recruited, and the story was all along, if you do these things, you'll have a chance. Do you think that D1 programs, like I think maybe you're saying this before, go backwards? Like not the football team, right? But like, hey, we don't want to play this. We'll go to D3. I mean, there's a story there. It's not bad, right? I don't understand like that became this bad thing. Like if you're not D1, it's like you're not a good athlete. That's not true.
Yeah. Well, I know like IMG, the president of IMG, who's also Brent, is pushing with their team like, hey, colleges, like, why don't you have your like football team that's like your A1 varsity, but then like maybe have your club team below that, or maybe 2 below that. And then their argument is like more kids will want to come to this university and say that they're still playing their sport that they love, but they're just never good enough to get up there. Maybe that's another like trick to bring in admissions and more in the athletic department. But yeah, I mean, kind of going back to what you were saying a minute ago, though, it will be interesting. I do think that's one way you can go, but I think the other way is like, we can't afford any of that unless the families want to keep paying. Otherwise, we got to shut these sports down. I mean, we just can't afford to have 25 D1 sports or, I think we're going to go the other route. I mean, the budget cuts.
Do you think those are Olympic sports? So that becomes an issue, right? Yep. So they're not playing that anymore. The NIL, like the amount of entrepreneurs, the amount of athletes which are entrepreneurs becomes less because they're not playing it. So, I mean, I don't know where do they go. I guess if there's only so many spots, there's only so many spots, right?
Yeah. I mean, it gets scary on that side, right? So maybe that's where I see like, okay, you can still keep your dream alive at Michigan, for instance, but you've got to kind of pay your way to be on the field hockey team versus have a scholarship.
Yeah.
And if these athletes love their sport enough, and maybe it's still like their trigger, to get in through admissions a little bit easier than the rest of the student body, they're like, you know what? Yeah, I'm willing to still pay my way, be on that highly competitive club level field hockey team.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because then some families wouldn't be able to afford that, right?
Yeah. I mean, they'd have to apply for academic scholarships, not athletic anymore.
Yeah. But then you would have access to potentially NIL, so you can make money that way. Right.
Yeah. I mean, we've spent a lot of time talking with the schools with their Olympic sports. There's a big focus on that right now with our platform. How do we unlock deals for these Olympic university athletes?
I know that's a many billion-dollar industry, Olympics, right? U.S. Olympic team and all that. I'm sure they're watching this very closely because that's the training ground in many respects for the athletes that are coming in, whether it's fencing or volleyball or what have you.
Yeah, for sure. And so if we can help unlock and make it easier for these athletes to get deals. I mean, last year I was talking to one of the best swimmers in the world. He goes to Texas. He was in the last Olympics, won a medal. He'll be in this one for sure. And he had like 5,000 followers on his account. So he wasn't big enough to even though he was in the Olympics, he wasn't big enough to have an agent pick him up. And they didn't think they could do any deals with him. And so it's real with these Olympic athletes that don't have a strong social brand following. And that's why, at the onset was like, you've got to build that personal brand along with your sport. Like if you don't build that personal brand at that even highest of highest levels, you're going to be left behind.
It's like anything in business, right? You don't have to opt in. Like if he's like, I don't want to do it, that's totally cool. No one's got a problem with that. If this is a big deal for you, then you have to have a following. It's got to be. I would hope they're looking at legitimacy because just having a podcast. I mean, the amount of pitches we get to be on a podcast and like how many followers they have, and then you go to it and there's like no engagement. I'm like, these are all bought, right? This is not real. It's like Google reviews or something like that. That's why I'd rather reach out to you, like, hey, Brent, do you want to come on and have a podcast because that's more authentic. So I would imagine they're doing their due diligence, especially the bigger brands, to say, is that 5,000 or 50,000 followers real? Because you can get a big number if you cheat. But anyway.
We actually have that in our system too, by the way. So we can
really? So they can see that.
Report on bots. So you can see the legitimacy of the followers.
Yeah.
And you find some athletes that have the 50 and they really only have 7.
Yeah.
Because they bought all those bots. And so we flag that.
That's great. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, well, that's the data, right? So it's like, I talked to someone else, he's in the training business, and he would love me for saying this. He's like, I just want good information. And it might not be the information I wanted, but at least it's good information. And so with that, now I can make a decision, right? So that's big. And so is it a specific platform when you're talking about followings? Is it Instagram? Does it TikTok? Does it not matter?
We track all the big 3, we like to call them. So it's Instagram, TikTok, and X.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we track all big 3, and you could filter out like, hey, I just want to see input, just Instagram, or I want to see all 3. I'm looking at this kid regardless. I don't care what platform he's on.
What if he's at a big YouTube channel or something like he's a streamer and he plays video games, he plays Madden or whatever, and he's a football player?
That probably is the 4th that we need to integrate. We haven't had like a crazy amount of asks for it, but we've had enough that it's on there.
But you can still build, if you have a YouTube channel like that, you might still also have an X account that's going to do well. That would be the first line of understanding it.
Yeah.
Podcast would be another one, right? But again, that would then there'd be distribution across over to X or Instagram,
right,
or what have you.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah. How, like, they can start whenever, right? If you're a good athlete, I mean, you could be a high school, you can be a middle school kid, and you can start building your following and all that. And it doesn't have to be, like, I think it doesn't have to be directly related. And I don't know if it's a true story. This might have been AI generated. Arvell Reese played at Ohio State, and he showed the inside of his jacket at one point. I don't know what day it was. And it was all like Reese's, right? Because his last name's Reese. So it's perfect, right? It's like, how lucky are you to have that name? And he's good enough with the money being drafted where he was. But like, it could be anything, right? You could have a kid who's a field hockey player, but also loves to play the guitar. And all of a sudden, some local guitar company wants to do a brand deal, which I think is really cool, that an athlete could have other interests that you'd be like, I didn't even know idea about that. That's really cool, right?
That's what the brand wants, right? Like, it just is as good of a soccer player as everybody else, but you just sit at home and twiddle your thumbs. Or they see you playing golf, or they see you like posting that you're, playing with your dog or whatever. Like, they're like, oh my God, I could do a Chewy dog brand campaign with this soccer player because I know they love their dog.
Yeah. This might be, if it's done right, if they can figure this out and they can educate them, because college is like, everyone's looking at like, I don't even know what we're doing in college sometimes, right? Is what they're thinking. I think there's more to it. I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think college is an incredible opportunity. You're around young people your age, and of all these, you go walk around a college campus, there's so many resources. You just have to take advantage of it. Right? So at least I tell my kids, right? But like, you can learn to become an entrepreneur in real life where there's attention coming to you as just because you're an athlete and they want to do deals with you. And then you have systems that you're creating that Brent's created at athlete, right? Student athlete score, that allows you to tap into that. I think that's amazing.
Well, yeah, and there's a life past sports, right? If you're smart enough to use your platform while you're at a university and grow that, and let's say at your senior year, you're no longer able to play professionally, but you have 70,000 followers and you're a track and field athlete and you've had all these brand deals, guess what? If you figured that out, like, you now have a platform post-college to not get a day job, right? You might be able to monetize the brand that you've created over those 4 years or over your playing career.
Yeah. What have I not asked you in regards to student athlete score that's super important, that's going on right now, or just in the world of college sports that you're seeing that's there, if there's anything that comes to mind?
No, I mean, I think we talked a lot about college sports. It's the Wild West. It's a new era of the Wild West. Hopefully it calms down with the 5-and-5. I think NIL will still be there. I think that certain guys or ladies who are being paid will become a little bit more regulated as well through NIL Go and like through data and everything else. We're seeing just such a massive movement, though, very quickly here into the youth market and the high school market. And really excited. A lot of conversations we're having right now with like Perfect Game and IMG Academy and Rush Soccer and some of these major players play on sports and their max preps. And so there's a lot of opportunity here to help educate the youth, and I say high schoolers, about, hey, we're talking NIL in college with our college partners, but like for you guys, we're talking about building your personal brand. Let's focus on building your brand. Let's focus on you getting rid of those posts that might come and bite you in the rear from 2.5 years ago. And then once you clean all that up and establish like a strong platform, now let's start to like incorporate that next layer of local deals. And what does that look like? And so, if I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I'm a high schooler, I can now leverage the student athlete score system to see what are Michigan athletes doing with local Ann Arbor restaurants. So now I can get confident and say, oh my gosh, I know they're a Michigan athlete, but they only have 1,000 followers and I have 3,000. So I'm actually going to go approach them as like the star high school, whatever, and say, hey, look, I see you have an appetite for NIL locally. I know I'm not a college Michigan player, but like I can get 3 times the reach. And by the way, all of my followers are here in Ann Arbor because I grew up here. That athlete that you used last month, they grew up in California. So like if you want to hit, if you're a local jewelry store or whatever, if you want to hit people in this community, I'm probably a better fit for you.
Yeah.
So now it's starting to educate the brands and get everybody kind of like through the data saying, oh my gosh, like the youth market makes maybe even more sense to unlock. Because guess what? That high schooler will probably do the deal for $50, where the Michigan athlete wants 500, right?
Right.
And then we can show the brand, hey, for that $50 spend, you got 3,000 more eyeballs in Ann Arbor, Michigan than that $500 spend with the athlete that just came from California. That's a Michigan athlete that no one's going to buy from your jewelry store in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Yeah. What's crazy about that is it's like a masterclass in sales and marketing and all these types of things and outreach and just all the things that actually happen in business, right? Like you just described to a kid how he'd like go from here to here and like how to reach out to him and what to say and like all the differences and how I'm better than this, whatever that might be. Like that is the thing that you could learn. There's so much to learn in that. And you could start at any age from that. And then if you go through high school and college and doing that over and over, that repetition, right? If anyone's in sales or marketing or whatever, that's all you were doing. Right. That's the real world. You're having conversations with people. And if they can come out with that, like what a cool thing NIL can be, right? Because there's a lot of negative and I don't like it and this and that. And it's like, yeah, it's here. It's not going to change. Yeah, there's definitely disruption and chaos like we talked about. But if there's people like you out there building platforms to kind of like try to synthesize this whole thing and bring it together, I think that's a very positive mindset towards it. Even though you understand, like I could ask you, like, what is it overall? You're like, yeah, it's pure chaos probably, right? It's like,
Yeah. Or one more I'll just toot our horn on is the grouping of athletes. So say like you've got a bunch of 14-year-olds and their parents and they go to family dinner or they go to like team dinners after a game or team ice cream shop. Guess what? That pizzeria that they all just went to and spent, $400 for that dinner, I bet you that pizzeria might consider free in exchange for everybody posting on their social accounts, hey, here I was at the pizzeria, awesome place, go get the pepperoni, blah, blah, blah. You take those 14 athletes, their 14 parents, and you add up all their social handles, and let's say it's 30,000 person reach, that becomes extremely powerful, far more worth than the $400 bill that the pizzeria wanted to give that group. So think of like it becoming that micro-influencer movement, and not just the athlete, but maybe tagging in the soccer moms and everybody else. Like this marketing movement is a $300 billion global movement that's happening. And so now we're trying to solve for it in this youth sport space.
Yeah. That what you just said there of like the reach. And I think it's hard for some people because they want to monetize. They want a transaction right then and there, right? Like the pizzeria might be like, that's $400. That's a lot. This is like their biggest sale that we've had all week. Totally understand. But at the same time, like you said, what was that reach that you just got,
I said like 30, look, if everybody has 500 to 1,000 followers, you get the parents and the kids all posting, hey, you guys want free dinner tonight?
Yeah.
If I see a post from everybody, like, I'll waive this bill.
Right. And like what that can do for you. And that's the era. And it's like, that's where the exponential growth comes in because next weekend, you can't even serve them all. Right. Like that's a better problem to have. Yeah.
Now you have 10 other teams that were like, oh my God, I saw you guys went over to that pizza joint last week. It looked like it was amazing. We're all going there now.
Right.
And you're right. Now there's a line out the door.
Yeah. And you don't see it, right? Because it's not as obvious. It's like, well, you posted that. Cool. Crickets. But that's what we talk about. That's like watching AI being built. Like it just gets better and better and you don't see it. And then we'll look back like 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, and be like, wow, what happened? This is crazy. And that's doing it at a smaller scale, of course, but it matters, right? And I think that's why a lot of people like, I want to be on a podcast. I want to make my YouTube shorts. I want to do this. I want to show up to a conference. I want to reach out to people. I want to send emails to people. It's just getting it out there. And I think a lot of this stuff watching NIL is like what business owners can be doing, or business people, or salespeople, or marketing people could be doing, right? It's the same thing. It's just it's just a new industry.
100%. And then they should be using micro influencers to help promote that company that they're working for right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an organic, much better way to reach your audience versus throw a billboard up there and hope that as I'm driving, I happen to look up, but maybe I'm not even your target customer, right?
Right.
With this social influencer marketing, like I can go in our system and say, hey, I'm looking for athletes that have 1,000 to 2,000 followers that love fishing, that are, in the Michigan area that, I think I could probably get for like $20 a post. Like, now you're like, oh my God, I almost can predict the outcome of my spend versus throwing a billboard up on the interstate, hoping that my target market even happens to look up at that point in time and even look at it.
Yeah. How did you talk about the universities that you work with? Was that connection based? Was it getting in the door? What did that look like, if you could share?
Yeah, definitely the first couple. Actually, USC was our first. And so I didn't really have a direct connection, but it was through a conference that I went to that they showed interest, and then we were able to get them. And Boise came on early. Boise State's a huge power user of ours. Love what they're doing with the Bronco Pro division over there. And then from landing those, got Michigan, I think was our third. And then, once you land like a Big Ten school or a couple, and then you get your first SEC school and you start to leverage, right? Like, hey, we got so-and-so and so-and-so. And then it's funny how some of these SEC schools and Big Ten schools like to follow the Michigans and the Texases of the world, but we have Texas as well. And so like that just really helped us like kind of evolve and grow.
Who's making those decisions? Is it like the general manager of the football program, or the athletic director, an assistant?
Yeah, it's different in most schools. However, it seems to fall into either like the NIL director's hands, or it falls into like this chief revenue officer or the chief commercial officer. Like these are all new roles that now they're hiring guys from the NFL, the NBA that like know how to run a true sports business. You have a lot of people on these collegiate campuses that have been there 20 years, 15 years, that they do amazing work operationally, but they've never had to run it like a business with profit and loss statements and everything else. And so like now there's this world of, hey, we don't know how to do this. We got to go find a guy from the NFL as our chief commercial officer. We've got to create this new like Spartan Ventures or Clemson Ventures arm. And so like there's this whole movement now of like professionalizing and commercializing collegiate sports.
Yeah. You traveling a lot as a result of all this?
I'm actually really lucky to not. I told people in my past business I probably should have been on the road all the time, and I just kind of had that life-work balance where I'm like, I'm not doing that to my family, my kids, and myself. And so kind of the same deal here. Thank goodness. That's the only good thing out of COVID was like you can do a lot of Zooms now and like okay with that.
Yep.
Pre-COVID, right? You had to fly the country. So no, actually is the short answer. I'm very fortunate that we've been able to do a lot of deals just remotely through Zoom.
Yeah. Well, they can see it. They see that it works, right? It's like we talked about before.
Yeah, we're not selling me, right?
Yeah.
We're selling this platform. And so like, I'll get you access to that platform and like you go whiz around and they don't need to see me. I mean, they want the platform.
Yep. I love it. Well, Brent, this is awesome, man. Where do people learn about Student Athlete Score? How they connect with you?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. This was awesome. StudentAthleteScore.com. We also have Instagram, Student Athlete Score. And, my LinkedIn is out there. I'm Brent Wall, pretty active on that as well personally. So if anybody ever wanted to reach out and have a chat, open to it.
That's awesome, man. You got a lot of thoughts on this whole space. It's changing. We'll have to keep these conversations going because I'm sure in a couple months, some other things will change, right? Yeah.
Tell everybody that, right? Like what we just did here, like get it out ASAP because we might need to do this again next month.
Yeah. It's always evolving. That's what makes it fun. So Brent, I appreciate it.
That was awesome, man. Thank you so much. Thanks, Eric.
This has been a Sports E Media production.